Looking to make some healthier habits this holiday season? Make sure to check out our Moving Through Midlife community over on Facebook, as we are doing a Planksgiving event where we are doing daily plank workouts. We will be doing an Advent for healthy, happy hips this holiday season, and then also have a sugar challenge, a 2-week sugar challenge that you might be interested in. Happy holidays.
Welcome to Raising Healthy Humans, a podcast created for busy moms, where you can easily find information on health and wellness for your family. Enjoy experts who share tips on how to raise children through each phase of life. Gather current information on nutrition and wellness, and listen to Courtney, a health coach, movement specialist, and founder of FormFIT, an active and supportive community where she helps busy moms move more. On Raising Healthy Humans podcast, Courtney shares her personal life experiences, training, knowledge, and conversations with other health and wellness experts so you can raise healthy humans.
Today, I am speaking with Karin, the CEO of Health Yeah Life. After being diagnosed with colon cancer in January 2020, she knew that she did not want others to go through what she had. Shortly after her colon resection surgery, she became a certified integrative nutrition health coach specializing in gut health. She is passionate about empowering others to live their healthiest life by understanding the importance of their diet and what it does to our gut health. I hope you enjoy this conversation. Hello, Karin. How are you?
I'm good, Courtney. Thanks for having me.
Of course, of course. I want to hear your story. So I spoke to you the other day, as I'm going to be on your podcast, but I want to hear from your side what your story is and how you became an integrative health coach.
Well, you almost have to go backwards then. Well, I have to tell my story.
Yes, tell us your story.
So the beginning of 2020. So it was actually, it's funny that you remember days, but January 8th, 2020, I went in for a colonoscopy and was diagnosed with colon cancer. And that's like, boom, right there, right?
Most definitely,
Yeah, but I can tell you the backstory on that because everybody always wants to know what happened. Did you have issues? So I can share a little bit about that, but I did end up having colon resection surgery on February 3rd of 2020. And then the pandemic hit. So we can go into that too, but I'll back up. I'm going to back up just a little bit. Okay. So did I have issues? Because people always ask me that, Courtney. They're like, did you have any signs or symptoms or anything like that? Yes, I did. The problem is, like a lot of people, I had them for decades. Right. And you say that and you go, well, you had cancer for decades? No, I didn't have cancer for decades. But having those issues for decades, I probably didn't pay attention to my body like I should have, right? That's just kind of, and women, we kind of do that. So when I was actually, and my body's interesting. I'm very in tune with my body. Yeah. And I think most women are. It's like we have interesting bodies and we are who we are. But in my 20s, and I ate the SAD diet. I ate the standard American diet. I know when you and I talked, we talked about it, and God love you for everything you're doing for your family and your children and others, because you have this wonderful podcast, and I think that's awesome. But I didn't know that the standard American diet was not, it could heal or harm my body. Let's go there.
Right.
Okay. So basically in my 20s, well, younger too, I remember in my teens loving, the drive-thru diet, the crap food, the standard American diet. But in my mid 20s, I was having some rectal bleeding. And my doctor actually at that time went and did a colonoscopy, and it came back fine, Courtney. I was fine. Okay. So I kind of wonder now if that was almost a hinder, because all these symptoms I had, but I was fine. right? So you just go, this is just my body. But I would have bloating. I would actually have severe abdominal, I don't want to say cramping, but pain, like in my intestines hurt. What ended up happening too is I had a hysterectomy at the age of 30 because they said I had a prolapsed uterus. Now I look back and go, did I have that? Or was my intestines inflamed all the time from my diet? You know? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So now that I've learned all this, I'm like, putting the pieces together. But yeah, so I'm just wondering, okay, but I always had this inflammation. Well, it got really bad like in 2019 where I was having mucus all the time. And then I was having bloody mucus. Okay. And it was not normal. It was like, this is not good. So I went to my naturopathic doctor. I went to my chiropractor. You know, I tried all those type things. We did diet. We did all kinds of things and nothing was helping it. And I even did the carnivore diet, which is interesting. So if you go on an elimination diet, if you're just strictly meat, you should be fine as far as, no, it's probably not good for you in other ways, but you should be okay as far as you don't have these these immunities to the food, right?
Right.
So, right. But I wasn't getting better, Courtney. So I told my husband, it was like November of 2020. I said, okay, or 20 of 19, November of 2019. Let me get the date right. November of 2019. That I was like, okay, it's time, you guys. I need to go to the GP, the general practitioner. We have a great doctor. He's going to want me to do colonoscopy. At that time, I was 51. When are you supposed to do your colonoscopies, friends out there? 50. Okay. And they've actually lowered it to 45.
Okay. I was going to say, so at 45, you can do a Cologuard.
Yes, you can.
Yeah.
Yes. And then you can go from there. I didn't do any of those things, which maybe I should have. But you also have to remember, those may not detect cancer.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. That's what I've been told. So just be really, because people don't want to go through the colonoscopy because it's embarrassing. It's not fun by any means. But so anyway, so I didn't do my 50-year-old checkup. Shame on me. You know, I'd always made my husband go do his father had prostate cancer. It's like, you're going to be going in for your checkups and stuff, but I didn't necessarily take care of me. And as women, we know better. We have to take care of us. You and I discussed that before, you know, moms, women, we're the boat, right?
Yes. Yes.
And if that boat sinks, everybody drowns. We have to take care of ourselves. And women forget to do that, especially in this day and age. So, but anyway,
we're so busy.
And I have 5 children and now I have 6 grandchildren, but you're right. We're just busy people. So there were my symptoms. I had bloody mucus. And again, so I was like, okay. And the GP doc was like, yep, you're going in. We're going to give you a colonoscopy. We're going to see what's going on. So then fast forward, I go in, the GI doctor wakes me up and tells me I have cancer, which I know everybody goes, really? And I'm like, really? That is what happened. He woke me up from, being under and he said, you have cancer. And I looked at him. At first I looked at my husband, my poor husband, Courtney. I looked at him and he's just mouth is wide open, right? And just blank stare. And because cancer equals death. When you say cancer, it equals death. That word is super scary.
Yes.
I looked at the GI doctor and I don't know, it's kind of my personality, but I'm sure I was loopy, but I looked at him and I said, how do you know I have cancer? And he said, until you tell me you don't have cancer, you have cancer. And he knew, Courtney. I mean, I believe now, and he's been my doctor for the last 3 years, but I think he was a relatively new doctor, which may have been a good thing. But so then fast forward, we go through all the doctor appointments, because they rush you through it pretty quick. So they send me over to the specialist, who's going to do my surgery, the surgeon. He was amazing, and talked to him and set it all up. They did it robotically, which again was amazing. I was in there for a couple of days, minimal scarring. They took out almost a foot of my colon.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. And when they did that, they took out 17 lymph nodes from the surrounding area. And they do that when you have cancer to make sure it hasn't spread.
Right.
Mine had not spread, but it was 1 millimeter, which is, I mean, like a hair from
Right.
coming out of my colon. A colon cancer spreads through your colon. So it actually goes through your colon and then it'll infect things around it, your lymph nodes. It'll go into your other organs. It'll go into your liver. Our livers are, I don't want to say your toilet, but it kind of is. It goes in.
Yeah.
Yeah. It goes and takes care of everything.
Out.
Yeah. Yep. So and then it'll go into different areas. That's how cancer spreads from the colon. Thankfully, I didn't have to have any chemo, radiation, anything like that. But then what happened? The pandemic happened, and I was like, oh, what a better time to find a certification. And I became an certified integrative nutrition health coach.
Okay.
And it's just been an amazing journey over 3 years. I don't want to say I'm blessed that I had cancer, Courtney, but It definitely changed my thought process, how I look at food and nutrition, health in general. One thing I want to back up and tell everybody, I was not your typical patient as far as when I went into the doctor, everyone said to me, oh, this is great. You're thin, you exercise, you don't smoke, you eat relatively healthy, which we thought I did, eating what doctors know is healthy. And I didn't drink a lot or anything like that. I mean, so I did all the correct things, yet I had cancer. And so I always asked myself, how did somebody who looks healthy, relatively healthy, get cancer? And the thing I can tell everybody is nutrition is huge. Mm-hmm. Nutrition is huge. We talked about it at the beginning. You have to pay attention to your body, because if you're having any signs or symptoms, it's your body screaming at you. Listen to it. And I just thought that's how my body was. Now I know by eating certain foods, I can still get that feeling, Courtney. I can still have those feelings because there's certain foods, and I call them foods, and they're not foods, friends. They're processed foods. But if I eat certain things that are in processed foods or whatever, it'll do the exact same thing to me. I also am really careful. I don't do a lot of meat now, which is funny that I did an all meat diet. That was insane, but I don't do a lot of meat. It doesn't like my body either. So I've learned to listen to my body and what it likes and what it doesn't like. And I think a lot of people do it this way, men and women, and probably children, but we don't pay attention to what our body's telling us, right? It's like, again, listening to our body, but people don't think, oh, I have a headache. Why do I have a headache? Right? There's a reason.
So I want to ask you, did anyone else in your family have colon cancer?
Oh, no. No, I'm the legend, right? Now, when they go in to ask my kids, has anybody in your family ever had cancer? They can say, oh yeah, my mom. No. I mean, looking back though, there was a couple of uncles that ended up having cancer where my mom and I were like, maybe back then they had colon cancer.
And then it had spread up.
And they said it was, a different cancer, liver cancer, things like that. But I often wonder, did they actually start with colon cancer? Because it's amazing what they can do. Our Western medicine does a lot of things that I don't agree with, but they do a lot of good things when it comes to disease and stuff like that. I mean, I needed a surgeon. I needed somebody to take care of this.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So you had mentioned about certain foods that you eat that trigger things. Can you talk to us about what some of those certain foods are? Especially because of your certification, you really know like things that we should be paying attention to. Like talk to us about what are some things that so we know us as moms, like you said, we run the ship. We're the ones that kind of like, we're the ones doing all the shopping, usually grocery shopping and making the meals and things like that. So we need to start with ourselves, but then we also need to make sure that we're doing this for our children as well. So what are some of the things that you noticed for yourself, and then what based on your education, what we should be steering clear of as well?
Okay. Well, I will answer that in a second. But first, what you do is amazing, because we need to empower and educate our children. Because again, I didn't know. I didn't know, Courtney. And I didn't know what I didn't know. So that's just how it was. And a lot of people live that way. But sadly, our world has become convenience. Everything is fast and quick and easy. How do you think so many restaurants or like fast food chains stay in business? You see them lined up. They're not even like, they're next to each other, Courtney, you know?
Yeah. And what's so scary to me is back in like when we were teens, it was that way. Like it was already starting to happen. We have now, because of, and I think it's an Amazon thing. Amazon and the internet. I mean, you want immediacy, everything immediately.
Yep.
Where do you get that? Fast food joints. So we have become very much conditioned, say,
absolutely,
want things very quick.
Absolutely. So that's where I wanted to start is I know we are in a world of convenience. Okay. Yeah. And because I get a lot of that with my, clients and followers and stuff, they're like, but what do I do when we're running here to soccer or dance and I get that, but part of it is just planning ahead. We do that with other things, we make sure we have clean clothes to wear. We make, there are things that you just plan ahead and food should be one of them. And sadly, it's taken such a back seat and we're seeing it. We're seeing more and more disease. I mean, it's rampant. It's not a matter of if, but when. That people are, and again, our kids are being affected by it. We're seeing more kids that have issues and diseases and different things. So let's go back to the food. So what do I notice? Just like I mentioned, drive-through diets. A lot of us are eating that highly processed food, and it's refined food. I mean, it has no nutrition. It has no nutrition. If you think you're feeding your kids better, and we can name names, we'll go with chicken and everybody can pick the restaurant. But if you think that you're feeding your kids healthier because it's chicken, it is not true, Courtney. If you go and you actually find out what the ingredients are, which is harder when you're going through a drive-through to know what those ingredients are, right? You're not going to go, what did you put in my chicken? You assume you're eating chicken.
Right. But
there are so many other things. They want you to be they don't want you to just love it. They want you to be in love with it. It's creating people that are so addicted to these foods, and MSG is part of it. And they'll put these things in our foods. So again, drive-through diet, processed foods, huge. I think I mentioned it when you were on my podcast. I fed my kids cupboard crap. I call it cupboard crap because it's stuff that you get out of the cupboard and you create a meal. It was not a meal. When you're back grabbing boxes, again, not reading the ingredient labels, which I am a huge proponent of right now. It's like, read those ingredient labels, know what is in your food. Right. The best food to eat is whole foods. What are whole foods? People ask me, well, what is a whole food? It's a food that doesn't have a label. Your fruits, your vegetables, your meat, your grains, if you eat grains, things like that. And you want good food, Courtney, and having these processed foods, this junk food, again, thinking about what your kids eat, what I ate as a kid. You mentioned too, it's like it started. Okay. I'm a kid of the 80s. I graduated in the mid 80s and we had McDonald's and we had Taco Bell. Those were our lunches. That's where we went out to lunch. And that's probably why I loved it. They already had us going then. And you think, okay, well, now it's been almost 40 years later, which blows my mind, but it's just gotten worse, Yeah. So those are the foods. Those are the foods that people are eating that make you feel like crap. It's the packaged foods. It's the processed foods. It's the ultra processed foods. The oils are in everything, especially that's processed. And when I say oils, people are like, well, it's just got vegetable oil and it's not a vegetable, No, it's not. It's highly inflammatory, which is really, really hard for our body. It's hard for our brains. It just isn't meant to be ingested. And that's where people forget. When we put things in our mouth, it's going to a cellular level. That is who you are. You're either a giant Cheeto or maybe you are an avocado, right? Which would you rather be? Something that was created in a lab, a science experiment type food is what I call them. So we just have to be really, really careful. One of my favorite things, and people always laugh, was ketchup.
Okay.
And people like, ketchup? Well, I didn't think I had a sugar addiction, Courtney. And as I've gone through and learned so much more and researched and just been more aware, I'm like, oh my gosh, I loved sugar. Sugar was my high. I didn't have a little bit of ketchup on my burger or dunk my fries or my onion rings, which again came out of, a processed area where they cooked them in highly inflammatory oil that was probably rancid. Think about it. How often did they change that oil? I mean, we could just go deeper and deeper and deeper into this.
Right.
Yeah. So
go ahead.
No, but so saying that ketchup was one of my favorites, they started putting high fructose corn syrup in unknowingly to us in the 80s and maybe a little bit before, but they started doing this. I didn't know I was ingesting that. High fructose corn syrup is what they changed, like Coke and Pepsi. Again, I was a soda drinker, and that's when I had gut inflammation, was from all these sugars, and sugars cause disease. Okay, go back to disease. Sugar causes cancer. Sugar causes diabetes. We know sugar causes what they're calling diabetes 3, which is Alzheimer's. Sugar causes fatty liver. Now we're seeing fatty liver, Courtney, and it's non-alcoholic fatty liver.
Right. In children.
In
as young as children. Yeah.
And obesity levels are going up in kids. Diabetes is going up in kids because we're ingesting all this sugar. Again, when we talk about refined things, and you and I talked about it, high fructose corn syrup, if people aren't familiar with that it's corn. Corn is how they make this liquid. How do they take a little kernel and make this liquid? It is so highly processed. And again, our bodies were not meant to ingest this. Think of our grandparents. Did they have high fructose corn syrup? No.
Yeah. No. And our bodies, our liver can only handle so much at a time. Yes. That, once it starts to get overloaded, that's where that whole fatty liver comes through, is just because that it can only process, and I don't know the numbers, but so much fructose at a time. Right. And when you're having a lot of fructose, especially like with the sodas, that's, you're bombarding your liver, and it has to turn it into fat and store it rather than being able to process it and move it through the system.
Yeah. So, and it does your insulin. It does and think how people start their day, especially our kids, right? Refined carbs. They're doing cereals, all these grains, donuts, things that are spiking their blood sugar when you talk about it. And they're having, no wonder we have so much trouble in school, like concentrating. I even think back to my childhood and went, oh my gosh, I had those things. I would have probably, if they would have had it back then, been diagnosed with like ADD or ADHD. And I guarantee it came from those sugars.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and everything's linked to, like you had mentioned, everything you eat creates the cells of your body.
Yes. And I didn't know that. And people need to hear this loud and clear. What you eat is what your body is made out of. Again, hear me when I say it can heal you or harm you. Because that's what it does.
And I had heard on a podcast, and I thought this was genius. It was the Model Health Show. And he had said,
love Sean.
Yeah, he's great. He had said something about asking his doctor, like, could this be, because he had some spinal issues, could this be due to what I am eating? And the doctor said no. And then he said the doctor then gave him a pill. And he's like, what was that saying? I ingest the pill. I put the pill inside me and it's going to change something. But yet the food that I eat doesn't change something. Like, I was like, like we have got to understand that the way that medicine works in our body is the same way that food works in our body. It's metabolized by the system. It runs throughout all of your cells. So what's happening with the medicine is what is also happening with the food. Because I think we believe the medicine, but we're not believing the food. We're hung up on that. And it's like this, these are the same.
There's a disconnect. There's a disconnect there. Yeah, I agree. And it's not just with our, physicians. And it's coming around, Courtney. We're seeing more and more people talking about our nutrition and how important it is. The sad thing is, like I said, they're creating not just users, but they want you to be a heavy user. And they do this by, and it sounds crazy to say, but by their, scientists that they have in the lab that are food scientists that actually create these foods to be highly palatable and more craving, more addicting. MSG is a huge, if anybody does any research on anything, look at MSG and you can find out right there what it does. It makes you want more, crave more. People think they don't have willpower, Courtney, and it's not necessarily them. It's the food they're eating that's creating this in their system.
And they're spending millions of dollars on scientists to make this, make us become addicted.
They're addicted.
And then they've got proof showing all of these things that they do. Like every fifth chip is going to have that extra bit of salt on it because then it pulls you in more and wants you eating more. It's amazing what they're doing.
And they've created these flavors that we didn't know. Again, if you want to get into research and stuff, there's some crazy stuff with flavors, and just how they've created these so that, again, that your body, it wants it more and more, So yeah, we can go really deep, but again, I didn't know this, especially with sugar. And now I know so much more. And it's like, okay, that was what was causing a lot of issues. It's not all of it, but again, I was eating a processed diet, processed food diet. That's just how we ate again. So, but just knowing now that if I eat whole nutritious foods, my body's so happy. And guess what? My brain is happy. Again, let's talk about our kids, because again, I want everybody who's listening as a mom, as a grandma, I'm a mom and a grandma, think about those kids. Okay. And what you're doing to them. If you go and put them in your car, do you just let them bounce on the seat? No, you make sure they're buckled in. If they're little, you put them in their car seat. We want our kids to be safe. Yet when we feed them foods, we don't think of it that way. You are not creating a healthy child. You want them to be safe, but you ultimately are causing disease because they will continue to eat this way into their teen years, and feed their families from there. It's just how it is. And again, it's kind of scary because that's how our system is set up. And I want to say in America, but as Americans, we've spread it across the globe.
Yes. I was going to say what the Western culture is definitely been spread completely. So, okay. It's always great in theory to say these things. And I struggle with this myself. I would say the hardest meal, dinner easy. My kids always eat a healthy
I know what
dinner.
you're going to say.
It's breakfast. And like my daughter, she's really good. If my kids eat eggs, that's easy. But my boys, especially my middle son, he does not like eggs. It is very difficult. So what do you recommend? Because you even mentioned that you try to steer clear of some meats. And I would say, like, for my boys, they eat sausage and things like that just to get some substance in them in the morning. Right. What would you recommend these little ones eat? My little ones are big ones, but for anyone who's listening.
As we're talking to your guests here, well, basically, first of all, stop the refined carbs. Stop those things that are going to spike your sugar. Because think about it, when you eat breakfast, you're breaking your fast. That's why they call it breakfast. It's breaking that fast. Okay. And when you break that fast, you need to be breaking that fast with something nutritionally sound. A lot of times I'll tell my people, make sure that you have, proteins, fats, and fiber. Those are so important. But understanding those, like you said, is really difficult. And it doesn't have to be as hard as we've made it, but we've assumed that breakfast foods are those refined carbs. They're your waffles, they're your, breakfast sandwiches, they're your cereals, things like that. And a lot of those have a lot of sugar, or they turn into sugar, right? It's a refined carb.
Yeah. I listened to something this morning. They said 75% sugar. Cereal is 75% sugar. When I heard that, I was like, okay, this is disgusting.
It is disgusting. But again, think about it. Feed your kids what they like. Do you have some leftovers from the evening before? it's not wrong to eat different foods in the morning. And we have, again, we've created this culture where it's like, our thought process is you have to eat these certain foods at certain times of the day. You don't. Add veggies. If your kids don't like their, eggs, which I had to learn to like eggs too. And now it's one of my favorites, but, add some veggies in there. Yes, you can do some, and veggies are carbs, but you can add some carbs to it. Just don't make it the whole meal, get some meat. If your body's fine with meat, get that meat in there. Again, you want high quality food. So, and some fruits, get that fiber in there. It's all okay, because people are afraid of fruit now too, because it's like, right. Oh my gosh, yet they turn and they eat cereal, Courtney. It blows my mind, but we're scared of fruit. And I'm thinking, yeah.
I mean, not that oatmeal is, one of those.
It's one of those. Yeah, it's sticky. Yeah, it is sticky. Yeah, no pun intended. But yes, and even oatmeal. But if you add things like, some flaxseed to it, or some chia seeds, or there's so many things out there you could eat, add some nuts, you're getting that protein that way. Add some berries, you're getting some fiber that way. So there's different things that we can do. And there's some great recipes. You can make a whole pot of oats the night before and have it like in a crock pot and have it ready for your family in the morning. And it's delicious. And they can add some things to it, So yeah, you can do some of those things. Do I recommend them all the time? No, because oatmeal can spike your glucose or your sugars also, So, but yeah, you know what you eat? You eat food that you enjoy. So I say, let's quit, making it be about, oh my gosh, it has to be this. It doesn't have to be that. But again, staying away from those processed foods.
Okay. Convenience, you mentioned as well about like convenience. What can we do for those families who are on the go and just don't feel like they can take the time out for making dinner at home?
It's planning. It's planning. It's planning ahead, because if you don't plan ahead, guess what? You're stopping at the drive-thru because you haven't planned dinner. And if you can do some, prepping on a weekend, and again, everybody says, I don't have time, but Courtney, they'll sit in front of the TV. They'll sit on their phone and scroll. They do have time. We do have time. And I'm not saying we have to be busy all the time, and involve your kids, have them help prep. Help them cut some veggies and do some stuff. Get some stuff ready. There's so many meals out there that we can create and make, and they're ready in just a few minutes. I often think about how much time people say it takes to do that, yet they will leave their home, drive to the drive-thru or a restaurant, pick up their food, come back. And I'm thinking, you could have created a meal in that time for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Because for many, it's going to be 15, 20 minutes. And it's really not that difficult. One thing that I think about, like when you had mentioned the whole convenience and they don't want to spend time, the grocery store, there is so many things that you can buy that they have already made convenient for us. All these chopped up vegetables. Now you can even get a packet of vegetables that says stir fry veggies. Right. Like you just take that home and plunk it in. And those salad bags, they're not my favorite because they use vegetable oil, but they're better
but don't use the dressing in them.
Right. And yes, and not use the dressing. Find one, either make your own, which there are simple recipes for making your own. I just use oil, whichever vinegar I like, either balsamic or red wine vinegar. I'll either put a little bit of honey or mustard, sometimes both, salt and pepper. You've got a perfect balsamic vinegar yourself.
Yeah, that's healthy. That's healthy. That's not going to disrupt your gut. And that's something that we struggle with too. And, we're talking about this, gut health. Well, obviously your colon's in your gut, and having good microbiome. So, because again, people are probably hearing these words and going, oh my gosh. And I've even talked on other podcasts where it's like, I had dysbiosis, and people are like, what is dysbiosis? Well, it's basically where your gut microbiome is not happy. Again, I think back, we all do with the hindsight thing. I was on so many antibiotics as a kid, Courtney. And I think I was on an antibiotic for a solid year. because every time they would test us at school, which sounds funny that they tested us at school, I had strep. So they put us on an antibiotic, put you on an antibiotic. Yes. And for a solid year. Well, can you imagine? I had no microbiome. So again, if we're talking to your guests that go, what is your microbiome? It's your gut bacteria. We have good gut bacteria. We have gut bacteria. It has good and it has bad. Well, when you take these antibiotics, it doesn't just kill the bad stuff, Courtney. It has no way of knowing. It wipes out your bacteria, and therefore you have to create that again. We think about how kids don't play outside as much anymore. They're not in that air. They're not in that soil. They're not getting those microbes from outside. There's so many things that we're not doing, but our microbiome,
hand sanitizing them like crazy, killing all the.
Oh, you don't even want to get started on hand sanitizer. Yeah. And not knowing, we've created this fear factor in our world. And it all started with antibacterial soaps. We were going to kill those bugs, not knowing, again, you guys, we're not just killing the bad ones. We're killing the good ones. Hand sanitizer is the worst thing you can be doing. And I'm not just talking about for your microbiome. It disrupts your endocrine system, which it goes across the board for all your hormones. We're not just talking about your sexual hormones. All these things in young people, they're constantly, putting this on their hands thinking, oh, well, this is good. Your skin is your biggest organ. It's going to soak it up. And where does it go from there? It ingests it. So we need to be thinking of all these things. And no, we don't need to be afraid of all this. Simply wash your hands. My husband talks about how often, like men, when they're out there working, like especially farmers, you know what? They didn't wash their hands and they ate.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't suggest it.
I could just imagine my husband right now just cringe.
But that's what they've created. They've created this fear in people, and it's not a good thing, and even, okay, Courtney, when we're talking about our microbiome, our gut health, stress affects it. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And who isn't stressed anymore? If we weren't stressed before 2020, we sure the heck are now. We've done this to our kids, our families, ourselves. Everybody is on high alert. We're living in a sympathetic state, which is not a healthy place to be, the fight or flight. We're not meant to live in this sympathetic state. How can you digest your food if your body thinks, your mind thinks you're running from a bear? Mm-hmm. Your system has shut that down. It does not want you to be digesting. It doesn't want to stop and have to take a poop while you're running from a bear, right? So your digestion is shut down, and people don't realize this with all this stress and everything and living in the sympathetic state. And again, guilty. I was totally guilty of doing this. Again, we have this fast-paced world, but we need to learn to slow down. We need to learn to take care of ourselves. Again, teach ourselves, teach our children. I know we do live in a world of convenience. It's just how it is. So what can we do? For one, try not to get overwhelmed, because the outside world is there. Your kids are going to come across it. You and I talked about it. Okay, you can do certain things in your home, but then what happens when they go to school? They're with their friends, different things. And that's where you need to educate them. And that's where they need to realize, hey, if I eat this or I eat a lot of this, I'm going to feel like garbage tomorrow. Start letting your kids understand their feels too, because I think that's important. But go back. I never did answer your question other than they just need to plan. They need to plan ahead. Again, we plan that we got to get our kids to an activity at an X amount of, at a certain time. We got to be to work at a certain time. You just have to plan. Start making it a priority.
I like to leave my listeners with like an action plan, something that they can do and not feel completely stressed out about. So if you could give me what is one thing, and I think I already know the answer. I'm sure everybody knows the answer. One thing we should work on getting rid of. Okay. And one thing that we can add in to our diet to help have a healthier gut. And this is for both adults and children. I think, we should all be eating the same things.
I agree. Yeah. And you can't, again, buckle yourself in the car and not buckle your kids in, or vice versa. Okay. Because moms do it too. We stand there and we think we don't have time for ourselves. So we'll stand there at the counter eating, which is not healthy either. But I mentioned it, sugar and processed foods. I know that's two, but I want to say those are the ones what we need to start eliminating the most, paying attention to our ingredient labels. What do we want to bring in? Whole foods.
Okay. So when you say sugar and processed foods, I'm already thinking like, okay, that's like half
everything.
Right. So do you have something even more specific for them? Like just, if we're talking sugar, what's probably the worst? Like what can they really
Well, we talked about
on?
soda. Stop doing soda. And then what did we go from soda? We went to Gatorade, like it's healthy.
Right.
And it's like, oh my gosh, even my mom said the other night, she was like, well, dad wasn't feeling good. And the doctor's like, well, take this pill, we're talking about pills, and drink some Gatorade. And I'm like, mom, I'm like, don't have him drink Gatorade. And she's like, well, he needs electrolytes. I'm like, there are ways of getting electrolytes without Gatorade, without all that sugar and those food dyes. We could even get into food dyes, which we didn't discuss too. But I would just say, keep some of those sugary drinks, even the juice, eliminate that as much as you can. That's where you start small. Nobody expects you to go from 0 to 100, Courtney. And I think that's where it is too. We felt overwhelmed. So then we don't do it.
Right. And that's the key and that's what I try to say over and over again when I'm on here is don't listen to this and feel like, oh my God, I got to change everything, because you won't change anything.
Right.
And that's why I like someone to say, like, if you just do this one thing, just work on this one thing, this is going to help. And once you get that one thing accomplished,
then you can move to the next. Yes.
Then move it to the next one. So, and you said add whole grains, right? So
whole foods.
Whole foods. Sorry. Okay. So here again, give us
vegetables and fruit. Start adding that to every meal. Start putting it on your list of foods that you're eating, on your kids' plate. If you're creating their plate, on your plate. As adults, we don't get enough fruits and vegetables. We need to start eating more of those things. Again, whole foods that don't have a label. That's how you can explain whole foods. You don't look at an avocado or broccoli or a banana and go, I wonder what's in this. There's no label on there. So if that makes people think, okay, I got it. I know what a whole food is. Just think of it that way. And again, start simple. One thing I want to tell people, I don't expect you to throw out your pantry, your cupboard, your everything that's in it. Okay. Because I know how expensive it is to feed a family. But as you bring in foods, start bringing in better foods. Stop bringing in, you and I talked about the Oreos. Oreos were my favorite. We can talk about that. Oreos are vegan. They now create gluten-free, which people think then are healthy because they're gluten-free. And, they're even kosher. I mean, you could go, oh my gosh, aren't these a good food? No, it's a processed food. So stop bringing in those foods and start replacing them with better foods. Prime example, we're talking about sugar. If you feed your kids your breakfast meals with syrup, don't buy, I'm going to go with like the Aunt Jemima. That is high fructose corn syrup. That is not syrup, my friends. Purchase actual real maple syrup. Start making those small changes. And I have to say, because a lot of people are like, oh, my kids, my husband, nobody's going to like this. First of all, keep it really light, keep it really simple. You're not the dictator. Don't walk in and go, okay, here it is. We're making these changes, because people aren't going to do that, especially as kids, especially as teenagers, right, Courtney?
Oh, I do it to my kids all the time.
Yeah.
Mad at me.
Yeah. But that's not how they should learn. They should learn through us. And I think, just as we start doing this, just start making it part of life. We've made this convenience part of life and the way of eating processed foods and all the garbage foods. Why can't we change it to the other side? I often say, I think it's interesting how it's normal to eat garbage foods, but we're the weirdos that eat real food. Why is it weird to eat real food? How many people come to me and go, what do you eat? Like, is it good? And it's like, absolutely. Your palate will change for one, if you stop eating these processed foods, ultra processed foods. So just take it step by step, mama. Don't make it hard for yourself or your family. just start doing it. And trust me, they will come around, they will start liking things. And I can tell you, because I have a husband who loves sugar, who loves refined carbs, who loves his breakfast foods like pancakes and waffles and French toast and sugar.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
He now will read a label when we go to the grocery store, or he'll hand it to me and go, what do you think of this one? You know, he pays attention to his food. We eat gluten-free. I often say my husband doesn't eat gluten-free, or does he? Because he eats the way I eat, you know?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And he enjoys the food. Does he enjoy all of it? No, not, but that's with any food. And it could be a processed food. Somebody could go, oh, I don't like that. So again, just keep it easy for yourself and your family. Don't make it daunting, because if it becomes daunting, you're not going to do it.
Yep. Okay. Let us know where we can find you, how we can learn more from you. And then I know you also said that you had a special gift for them as well. So tell me about that as well.
Well, you can find me across the board at Health Yeah Life. So when people are like, what? Yeah, just think of it. Health Yeah Life. We want to lead a Health Yeah Life. So if I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook, Health Yeah Life. My podcast is the Health Yeah Life podcast. You can find me anywhere. My website's Health Yeah Life. And for your following, I have an amazing, we were talking about gut health. So I have an amazing gift for them. And it is a gut health guide, and it is the 7 secrets to good gut health. So they can get that at, and I know you'll put this in the show notes, but they can get that at healthyeahlife.com/gut health. And they can go grab that guide, and it will not only help them as women, but again, help their families and their kids and stuff.
Okay. Perfect. Excellent. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day for this.
Oh, I appreciate you so much. Thank you. And what you are doing, Courtney, is amazing. And your listeners need to hear that, because again, we're empowering and educating not only our friends and family, but our kids. And that is so important.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you for taking time out of your day to listen to our podcast. I hope you found this information valuable and hope that you can immediately use some of the information that was provided. Make sure to check out the show notes for all the links that we discussed today. We would also love for you to come join us over in our Moms Raising Healthy Humans community on Facebook to provide us with information moving forward with the podcast. We also provide you with a monthly focus to help you and your family live a healthier and more fulfilling life. And if you are interested in diving deeper with us, we offer different memberships to participate in so that you can get to know us on a more personal level. We offer monthly challenges, live events, on-demand and live workouts, meal plans, and so much more. Just head to formfitonline.com to learn more. And as always, make sure to keep moving.